Hello, everyone. My name is Akal, and I am a somatic therapist as well as an astrological counselor, and I also help individuals and couples along their sexual journey. So, what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about the sexual superpower of the sign of Cancer. Um, Cancer, actually, this was actually kind of deep when I was researching this and kind of looking into it. It was actually really deep because I guess it struck me in a lot of ways personally, but it also, in a much broader sense, it kind of reflected evolution on this planet in a lot of ways. Because with Cancer, we start getting a lot of references to, let's say, the moon. We get references to the mother, nurturing, attachment, and in a lot of other sort of characteristics. And so I'm going to talk a lot about those characteristics, and again, how do these characteristics, translate into relationships and sexuality? In the case of Cancer, this sexual superpower is it's less to do with some sort of trick. There's like no tricks here. There's like essentially what this sexual superpower is the eventually becomes into this sort of like ultimate nurturer. Now, what do I mean by that? So we have to kind of look at this from the perspective of an individual functioning completely subjectively in life. They functioning essentially they're functioning from the perspective of me and mine. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is Cancer as a sign, all the signs pretty much are undergoing some sort of battle. It's a battle between the higher self and the lower self, which is symbolized by Mars, in astrology in general. But each sign has its own particular battle. Now, the battle with Cancer makes it sound like they're battling disease. The battle with Cancer, the sign, is actually very similar to the nature of a crab. So a crab both exists on land and in the water. In the water, it can get, I guess, its protection, and it can get its nutrients. But on land is where it needs to breathe. It needs to evolve on the physical planet, on the physical land. And this is very, very much how Cancer is. So a young individual, what they might actually, I guess, experience is this sort of back and forth between the womb, which are the original waters from which all of us are birthed, and that this desire to continuously move back into the womb. And now the womb transforms as an individual grows up. It becomes the home. It becomes where one plants their roots. It becomes where you attach yourself. And so this tendency to want to find some sort of security, because again, that is the womb. It is secure, it is warm, it is cozy, and it nurtures you emotionally. And that is very much about Cancer here. So, and again, this is all fine and good on some level. However, when it comes to like sexual dynamics and sort of relationship dynamics, what ends up happening is this tendency can be kind of selfish, even though the Cancer individual is like, oh, I'm not being selfish. You're becoming very like needy, attaching, possessive. These are tendencies that perhaps might come out in an individual who has not cultivated the connection with their soul. Now, what do I mean by the connection with the soul? The soul is that sort of deeper guidance, right? It is the in-between spirit and personality. It is what allows us to move back and forth in between those things. And the pathway is intuition. Now, again, a Cancer instinctually is always moving between the waters and earth. So this need to root, and also the sort of psychic energies that these people are very, very sensitive to. These psychic energies, how do I describe them? It could be the emotional undulations, but again, what it is it's a bit like they're kind of blown wide open in some ways. They become subject to the energies of the people and the individuals around them. They become subject to the ebb and the flow of the moon and the lunar cycle. So all these energies are kind of like jerking around the Cancer individual, which is very challenging. And so that often what ends up happening is they need to, again, find things to ground. So grounding is incredibly important. Now, as this individual begins to ground, and as they begin to realize, hey, I'm being jerked around a lot emotionally and psychically, as they start to be able to see this, and they can see this, and again, all the previous videos I've talked about this, the need for individuals to gain objectivity. Because it's when you can kind of gain this objectivity, you start to recognize, in this case, this is incredibly important for Cancer individuals, is to be able to recognize the separateness. Now, I know in spiritual circles they say, oh, no, we're all universal, we're all one. Now, the progression is from this, in Cancer's case, and then also in general, is this selfish, subjective existence of me and mine, to objectivity, which is neutrality, to the eventual evolution of the progression of, I guess, the recognition that we're all one, right? So this is a progression that's required. So now what the individual has to do is they have to pull themselves, in this case, away from their mother's womb and away from their ancestry and away from their tribal ties. And the individual has to find that separateness from those things. When they find that separateness from those things and they stop identifying with their possessions, their money, all that sort of thing, what they end up starting to realize is that they have their own individual self-expression. This individual self-expression can then help them find their own sort of niche in life. So how else can I say this? This niche in life that the individual starts to find, what they end up doing is they end up gaining confidence. They overcome fear. Fear is kind of a huge inhibition, I think, for a lot of Cancer individuals. Again, because going back to this almost like this primal trauma, this sort of birth trauma of when the baby comes out of the womb and that umbilical cord is cut, that baby then takes that first breath. And this is when the soul truly becomes anchored into the physical form. And again, it's kind of a fearful thing. And I feel like Cancer individuals are very connected to this sort of, like I said, almost primal trauma. So as they gain fear and courage and they learn about their own individual self-expression and what it is that they want to achieve and they want to go after in life, their concept of home starts to change. And this concept of home is the true magic of, I guess, Cancer's sexual superpower. It moves from this idea of home being a possession. Then all of a sudden, home becomes much bigger. It could become like a possession. It could become the city you live in, the place where you are. And again, there's this gradual expansion of the concept of home. Now, eventually, what the concept of home becomes is it becomes this thing that travels with you everywhere you go. Because you start to realize something that's absolutely essential, which is the body is life. The body, this is home. And it's a home we share with everyone. And it's a home which, when we come from the heart, when we come from this place of devotion, we can devote ourselves to those in our environment. We can help humanity. And that is what Cancer is here to do. Ultimately, on a soul level expression, is to nurture humanity in some particular way. That is, again, for that individual. So the sexual superpower here is the ultimate nurturer. It is the completely selfless lover, because they've learned so much. They've learned about selfish desires, in the sort of selfish desires that were largely ruled by fear, and the fear of moving away from the mother's comfort in the mother's womb, in those sort of psychic waters that that nurture us. And so it's a movement that towards the individuation, which is at that point, when you find this individuation, you have shared desires. You share your desires with others, but it can be a little sticky in this intermediate phase, and that you might be possessive. So the Cancer individual can be a little bit possessive, and it can be overly attachy. I don't think that's a word, attachy, but it is now. So they can be overly attached and again sticky. This is like a sticky dynamic in a relationship. So then eventually, like I said, they kind of evolve past that stickiness, and it becomes this selfless desire, the desire to serve humanity in a very selfless way. And this means, again, I don't know, Cancer lovers at this point, I could just imagine them being amazing in bed. So attentive, so nurturing, and again, to bring about deep, deep, deep sexual unions. So with all that said, hopefully you understand Cancer a little bit better. And if you have a Cancer lover in your life, you're fortunate. If they've helped, I guess, if they've evolved as an individual. So with all that said, I appreciate you watching. Thank you.